Hey, yo, welcome back to episode 20 of the Boston Sports
Ooh,
Brothers podcast. Double digits. Well, I don't know. 20, we already reached double digits, but
20, yeah.
20 seems for just like some sort of momentous occasion. And who better to join us than Trevor Hass from the Boston Globe, Boston.com, and the Duxbury Clipper joining us this evening. We're going to be talking with Trevor about the Pats, a little college football and college hoops action and everything going on in those two sports, and a little bit of Celtics talk as well. And then Gabe's jumping on with us to wrap up the episode to do some Bruins and close things out before we take a little bit of a holiday break. We're going to be taking a break next week, so we want to let folks know that off the top. So make sure you listen to the whole episode, get all the content you need this week. Then we'll be back for a New Year's spectacular. So, gentlemen, it's great to see you. It wasn't great to see our football team return from the bye this week. So, J Matt, really quick thoughts. Then we'll kick it to Trevor. And J Matt set the stage for us, and then we'll go around the horn.
Yeah, so my big picture thoughts. I'm honestly, the game was just so bad. I'm not really going to touch on the game, but I have some big picture thoughts that I want to talk about. So under Josh McDaniels in 2021, the Pats went 10-7. They scored 462 points with Mac Jones as a rookie quarterback, and that was 17 games. It's really gotten that bad in the combined last year with Fatty P and Humpty Dumpty Alex Van Pelt as offensive coordinators. The Pats have scored 474 points, and that's only 12 more points in 31 games. So that's pretty crazy. That's really bad. So again, 462 points in 2021, and in two seasons almost combined, they scored 474 points. So it's really bad. And the one common denominator that to me is it's Bob Kraft. And throughout all the offensive coordinators and the head coaches that we've seen over the last few years, and even quarterbacks and players, it's Bob Kraft, and I've been a big defender of him over the years, and now it's time for him to start either thinking about moving on or letting Jonathan take over, who was clearly not happy during the game on Sunday when they panned to him. He was pissed, honestly, and he was charting game notes. So I think Bob Kraft has to take a look in the mirror personally.
Trevor, do you think Bob Kraft needs to look in the mirror?
I mean, he's getting up there, so theoretically, he's not going to be doing this too much longer. But he's been doing it a while, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, in my opinion, like you always talk to the old timers, and they're like, "Oh, back in my day, the Patriots were terrible. They won 2 games every year," and it's kind of hard for us to fathom because during our lives, they've been not great, but just like incredibly dominant. Which is like, we'll tell our kids like, "Yeah, they used to be amazing," and they're like, "Really? They were that good?" Because I think they're going to be bad for a while. I don't think it's going to be too good anytime soon. But at the same time, they have their quarterback, which is all you can ask for. As a fan, that's really what you want. You want the quarterback, you want the star defender. They have that in Christian Gonzalez. I'm not sure they have the head coach, but they do have some promising signs that they haven't had in a while. So I think it's going to be bad for a long time. But then 20 years from now, they'll probably win, a Super Bowl again. It's just kind of the ebbs and flows of sports. So we'll see what happens.
Big E Kraz, jump in.
Yeah,
So
it's go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't know. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of weird because Bob Kraft, if you think about like prior to him becoming the owner, they were a laughing stock. And he came in almost immediately. Yeah, they had Bill Parcells, but they were relevant. They reached the Super Bowl. There were a couple of years after that with Pete Carroll where things kind of didn't go to plan, right? Brought in Bill Belichick, and the rest is history, right? Clearly, the last couple of years have not gone great, but I do think on the whole, we do have to appreciate the fact that and I say collectively we, because we're all under the age of 40, we realistically only know the Patriots as a dominant winning franchise. So I don't necessarily like want to badmouth Mr. Kraft and say like, oh, he's got to go. I do think at some point though, is Jonathan maybe running more of the operation than we all may think? I think there might be some truth to that. I don't think Bob Kraft is involved in the day to day anymore. I think he's still involved in large decisions, but I think Jonathan is probably more involved in day to day things than you and I probably, or all of us probably think. So just want to start with that. I think, yeah, we have a quarterback, which is huge, but our roster outside of him and Gonzalez is pretty poor, right? It's pretty embarrassing to know that we had a top five defense last year, brought back most of the same players. There are some differences. We traded Judon famously, as we all uh, know, in the beginning of the season. Barmore wasn't around for probably the first 2.5 months of the season. Those are two pretty big defenders on your team. But to see the drop off from where they were last year to where they are right now is staggering. And, you know, outside of Drake May on offense, there's really not a lot to like. So there's a lot that needs to change. And, I think this is where I'm going to come and say, Bob Kraft, this is your opportunity. You can create some change, open up that checkbook this offseason. This is a team where we do need to build through the draft, and we're going to build through the draft because we're going to have high draft picks in each round. But in addition to that, we need to spend money. We have not spent money in the last couple of years, and if you want to see this team get better, you got to infuse some free agents here. So let's see what they can do in the offseason. But I think like Trevor, like you alluded, I think it's going to be a little time here before we're competitive.
But just real quick, they opened up the checkbook a few seasons back during free agency, and it hasn't really helped them. So that's just my only thing is it's more than just opening up the checkbook at this rate. It's putting people in places that are going to put the players in position to be at their best. And we haven't seen that. And I think Bob Kraft has been pretty negligent about the people that he's brought in because and I know that Bill has had a huge say on the OCs when it was Patricia and whatnot, but ultimately Bob Kraft has the final say and he can say no. So I think he needs to start putting people in better places.
So yeah, we keep saying the same thing. I'm going to keep saying the same thing that I said a bunch of episodes back, where Gerard Mayo is not the coach for the team right now, and it's clearly evident. I mean, he's hasn't really grown, nor has a lot of either of the other coaches, really, and that's kind of what it comes down to. But do I think this is all because the Crafts didn't pay out Mayo's salary when they got rid of Belichick a year early? Maybe I have no idea what's going on in Foxborough, but I do know that Gerard Mayo isn't the right guy for the job right now. It's evident. I mean, there's clearly no leadership at all. He's throwing people under the bus during his press conferences. And then like it's a vicious circle that I haven't seen any improvement from him. And that's what's I don't want to say scares me the most, but what needs to change is there needs to be you can't really I mean you can fault the players to an extent because they're the ones on the field, they're the ones making the plays, right? All right, yeah, you're completely right about that. But also at the same time, who's the one getting these guys ready to take the field? That's Gerard Mayo. And this team hasn't changed much. Drake May has been a shining star, yes, but it's been the same, we've been talking about the same exact issues for 12, however many weeks that there's been defensive line, self-inflicted penalties. I mean, that's all fundamentals. That's all coaching stuff. So there's clearly some issue with the coaching. And I personally think they didn't want to pay out Gerard Mayo's $10 million contract, keep him, and make him, and they made him the head coach. And that's now we're here.
It's backfired. Trevor, what are your thoughts on the coaching situation? Because I think it's what we just talked about, that what you're hoping to see and what Krause, what you alluded to beforehand is like you want to see this team build an identity. You want to see them try and work something here in the last 4 weeks of the season. And yesterday was just such a bad way to get that going. And it kind of feels like they've mailed it in. But Trevor, from a coaching perspective, like do you think Gerard deserves a second year based on how this year has gone? And I think yesterday was, especially post game, just an ugly situation for him overall. So would love to hear your 2 cents, Trevor.
Yeah, he's kind of shot himself in the foot a little more than I think he even expected to do. I don't think it's really intentional. I think it's just naivety, almost like he doesn't really know what he's doing. So he's kind of trying to go over here, and then he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have gone over there," and he's trying to backtrack, and it's like kind of a cycle where he's shooting himself in the foot a little more than even he wants to. So I think that's one side of it, and then I think the coaching and the playing and just the managing, it's all bad. I don't think anything is worse than another part of it. I think it's all equal to blame. I think the players are at fault, the coaches are at fault, and the Crafts are at fault. I think it's all three. So that's what I would say on that. And then I think drafting is also a big part of it too. I think that they have tried to get some wide receivers and some offensive linemen, which are the 2 biggest weaknesses in my opinion, and they haven't really succeeded in that area. I mean, the wide receivers like, oh, this guy's pretty good, this guy's pretty good. They try to get him each year and it doesn't pan out. They keep whiffing. So I think they're trying, but their talent evaluation is really lacking, which is kind of having it's a ripple effect from there because when you get these second round wide receivers and they stink, then everyone else stinks because they don't have any playmaking, and then the line's terrible and May doesn't have any time and the receivers can't make plays. So it's all just a cycle and they're all kind of doing because of what's happening around them.
Yeah,
it's just layered and layered and layered. Go ahead, Biggie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I want to be fair. Like Elliot Wolf, he drafted Drake May, but if you look at anyone else that was drafted this past year, they have not seen the field, right? Like it's either due to injury or just not being good enough. And I think knowing that we needed to have a quality draft last year, or I guess this year in 2024, they completely whiffed besides the top pick. And yeah, I'm gonna give them credit for the top pick. But does one pick where it was kind of like a 3 quarterback draft and maybe more than a 3 quarterback draft, if you look at some other of the quarterbacks that went after Drake May, like a Bo Nix, that seemed like, hey, there was some talent here. Are we really going to give him credit for something where it was kind of a layup decision, right? I mean, yeah, could have made a wrong decision there, but in general, I don't want to give him credit for last year's draft because I think they completely whiffed. And not just Elliot Wolf. I would like to also throw a lot of that on Matt Groh too. They run that department and they completely whiffed. Whiffed.
If you want fast receivers, you got to draft fast guys. Did you know that? Did you know that, everybody? I mean, it's just that I think it's time to clean house of all the Belichick disciples, all of the really the ties to the old regime. And the Crafts need to bring somebody in who is going to work with them better than Kraft did, but isn't going to stroke them in their egos the way that Gerard did. I think, and that's how he got this job. Was he knew how to interact with the Crafts and planted these seeds so long ago, as we've learned about with the trip that he went on. But just to wrap up Gerard, like the game yesterday, there's literally nothing to talk about. They saw Christian Gonzalez was really good, did a nice job on Marvin Harrison Jr. Some nice plays from May, but otherwise it was just a complete clown show as it is week in and week out. But in terms of Gerard, his post game comments were just the throwing of AVP under the bus and sounding like a 7-year-old. That didn't want to say that he put his hands in the cookie jar. And every damn week when he goes on Greg Hill, he's walking that statement back. Like it's literally, I posted it today. Just this cycle of stupid or coaches poorly, stupid comment after the game, walks it back the next day on Greg Hill. Just like in a cycle. And I think yesterday was at the point where it's like, you can't do this for another year. You just can't. Something has to give. And to Trevor's point, you have players that you can build around on offense and defense. And we've seen when a good coach is paired with talented players, what that can bring out of a team. And more importantly, a team that's bought in to a coach and their philosophy. And I think that they've completely tuned out Gerard. So any closing thoughts on this game,
Yeah.
this situation, because we have more things to move on to in regards to
just one quick thing that you mentioned about like cleaning house with like the Belichick era. I do agree. I think whoever is there right now, we do need to clean house and start fresh. But I'm also not opposed to bringing remnants of folks that were a part of, the Belichick era back in a different role. And what I mean by that is like someone like Brian Dable, right? He's most likely going to get fired from the Giants. Would I want to take Brian Dable back as an offensive coordinator if it means he's going to work and develop with Drake May, similar to who he did with Josh Allen? Yeah, I'm open to stuff like that. So I don't want to just put a blanket statement out there like, hey, I'm done with anyone that was tied to Bill Belichick, because I think there's some nuance there. And, I think we need to kind of see how things are going to unfold over the next couple weeks / month before we, deal in any absolutes. So I just wanted to throw that example out there just to kind of get the juices flowing a little bit.
I have a retort to that, because the reality might be that some of those people that you want might be heading down to Chapel Bill in North Carolina with Bill Belichick, who's made the move down there. And I mean, in terms of the coaching staff, like I'm okay with that. I think it'd be fine to bring back some of those remnants of the past, but that have been in other places. But truthfully, I wouldn't mind somebody that as if you want to open up the checkbook, Ben Johnson sounds pretty good to me.
I think Vrabel would have been a perfect coach for this team, but it is what it is.
I mean,
I agree, Trevor.
Yeah, and I think Vrabel is an excellent person for them to bring in and interview it. And that's the other thing too. Go through the interview process. Bring in different people that you might want to hire. Like they just literally gift wrapped it to Gerard. Like go through a traditional process and vet and figure out who you want for this team.
I heard there's a good coach down in Chapel Hill.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about that. Trevor, what are your thoughts on Belichick going to UNC and set the stage for us there? I think it's wild.
It's one of those things that, like, in the early stages, I never thought it was, remotely possible that it would actually happen. And then even in the day of, when it was like Schefter was tweeting it, I was like, is this real? Like, I was checking, is this the actual Schefter account, or is it like a Schefter with no E or something? Like, it was actually real. So I kind of can't believe it. It's one of those sports stories that just seems hard to fathom, but I'm really excited to see it unfold. I think let me separately say that team is pretty bad. I covered them against BC, and BC is very average, and BC smoked them. So there's some work to do down there. So it'll be interesting from a football perspective. And then the recruiting side of it is funny too. Like picturing like 72-year-old Bill Belichick like going into a living room and talking to an 18-year-old and just like pulling out the checkbook because it's all different now than what it used to be. He's like, we can give you this, we can give you that, and the kids just looking at him like, who is this? Like they don't even know. They're 16, 17 years old, and he's a legend. So it's just an interesting relationship between like this old guy and these young kids. So I'm kind of excited to see that, but and then at the same time, it's like, wow, like this actually happened. So I'm just kind of shocked still.
Anyone else on the bill, the UNC thoughts? Kraz,
Yeah,
J-Man?
it's do you think this like do you think this kind of hurts his legacy? Not really hurts legacy, but do you think this is a little bit below him to go to down to the college level and not even wait it out to see if there was potentially another shot in the NFL for him?
I think he sensed that there wasn't really an opportunity. I mean, if there were, I think he would have taken it. Maybe not certain teams, but the majority, I think he would have. Like the Falcons, I bet he would have gone there. Maybe even the Jets. Who knows? There was some rumors about that. Who knows if
Ugh.
there's any truth to it? That'll be weird. But yeah, I mean, UNC is, it's not really a football school. So I think if he goes in and struggles and they go 4-8 for 2 years and then he's done, it does hurt his legacy a little bit. He's still the greatest coach of all time, but there's kind of a weird footnote to it. Like, oh, and then he coached. It's like Michael Jordan on the Wizards. He was still good, but he's not the Michael Jordan Bulls player that everyone loves. So it's kind of like that. And I think he'll do like okay. I think they'll be 6-6, 7-5-ish, and he'll improve the team, but they're not going to be contenders anytime soon. They're just not good enough. So I'll be curious to see how it affects it long term.
Kraz, anything on
Yeah,
Boy?
I'm curious to see if this is all a ploy just to get back into the NFL. I mean his buyout is 10 million this year. Next year it's 1 million. Um, I'm very interested to see. I mean, I've heard. Well, I haven't heard. I've listening to the radio guys and some of the people that we've interviewed. They've talked about this theory of how it can be a ploy of him trying to get back into the NFL, and it just really strikes me as an odd place to go. I know he was a big time, I think Navy guy, right? Um, yeah, so he's a big time Navy.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he was like, oh, I'm gonna go be the head coach of Navy, like the lacrosse team or the football, like that, I could understand as like a retirement job. But this, something's just like I don't know, it's weird.
I
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I think it just comes down to he wants to coach, and I think like at the end of the day, if he knew that there wasn't going to be an opportunity in the NFL for the next season, he's 72, and if he wants to keep coaching, you know, taking 2 years off and then expecting that that job is going to be available to you at 73 is not really realistic. I think for him, it made sense. Hey, there was some connection to UNC. His dad coached there when he was a kid as an assistant. He's got a great opportunity to go in there and make a change. Yeah, could there be a possibility that he comes back to the NFL in a year or 2 years? Yeah, I think so. I think it depends on how he does. And, Trevor, I think you kind of said like, hey, yeah, is he gonna, bring some respectability to that program? Yeah, probably. Is he gonna, suddenly turn them around so they're gonna be, in the college football playoffs in a year or two? Absolutely not. And that's not a shot at Bill. I just think that's it just speaks to how hard it is to turn around a program, which I think is a good segue for us to talk a little bit about the college football playoffs and the first game that we have coming up on Friday with Notre Dame and Indiana. Because Indiana, now you want to talk about a team that really kind of turned their program around in 1 year. Indiana, I think, is the poster child of that.
Yeah, no doubt. And the college, I will say for Bill, and with a wide open ACC, I think that depending on how long he's there, that they could sneak into the playoff if they're able to go on a run in the ACC. But back to the playoffs a little bit. Trevor, just your thoughts on the new format, and then BC. We'll talk a little bit about them and their appearance in the Bad Boy Mowers Bowl at Yankee Stadium. So, college football playoffs, BC. Whatever your thoughts are, Trevor.
Yeah, well, I love the 12 teams. I think it's, long overdue. I think it's great. I would be fine with 8 or 16, but 12 is a little weird, but I think the concept is great. How it's just like, you have the teams like Indiana and Boise State and Arizona State that make it, and then you have your Georgias, your Texas, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I also think it was really good that SMU made it over Alabama. I thought that was the right decision. So kudos to the committee on that one. It's kind of like March Madness. It's like there's always that one team that's left out that has a legitimate gripe, and I get it, but at the same time, there has to be some selection process. Otherwise, what's the point? So I think SMU was the correct team there. So I'm excited to watch it. I think it's going to be really fun. I don't think there's a clear-cut best team this year. I think Oregon is the best team, but I don't think it's by a landslide. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see. I think Texas is a team that I'm keeping an eye on as a team that could make a run and maybe win it all. So I think it'll be great.
So I kind of have like a two-part question, Trevor. So you like the formatting, you like how like if you win your your division, or not your division, where
Conference.
your conference, your conference, you get an automatic bid. Like you like that take, right? Like that's so. Do you think that attracted Bill to the UNC job because the ACC is not a power conference? I mean, to be quite honest and to be clear, it's really Clemson. I think that has the best program in the ACC. I don't think there's a ton of programs that are like top tier. And if he could turn that program around, let's say 2 to 3, 4 years, do you think that's appealing to him to potentially the new playoff format?
Possibly. I think one of the coolest stories in all of sports this year that no one's really talking about is Arizona State. I don't know if you guys know the full story, but they were picked last in their conference. In their first year in the Big 12, they were picked last, and they ended up winning the conference and made it to the playoffs as the 4 seed, which is kind of bananas. Like, obviously, Arizona State's not really a football powerhouse, so they kind of just came out of nowhere and made it. So I think there is some room where a random team like UNC could maybe make a run. Like you said, the ACC is not super strong. It's really Clemson. SMU has established itself as a pretty good program now, so
True.
they're at the top. And then Florida State is still Florida State. They had a terrible year this year, but I don't think they'll be terrible for too long. So they're still kind of at the top. And then in that second tier, you have, teams like Wake Forest, BC, Pitt, Syracuse, a lot of teams that are kind of in no man's land. So I think there is the chance for a team like UNC or BC even to kind of make a surge in the ACC and join Clemson in the championship game. It's not out of the question.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question that BC could make a run, and I think obviously not this year, but going forward, Bill O'Brien has really brought respectability back to the program, and I think we're all excited about a bowl game that's coming up here in about a week, or a little bit over a week, actually, a week and a half. So just wanted to chat a little bit about just BC and just the season that was. I know that you intimately covered the team, so just love to hear your thoughts on BC.
Yeah, it was a really interesting season. I've enjoyed covering it. So they started 4-1, and they were ranked for the first time since 2018 after 2 games. So things were really looking up. They were playing extremely well. They beat Florida State, which kind of didn't mean as much as people thought it might mean, but it was still a good win. And so things were looking good. And then they lost 3 in a row. So they were 4-4. And then it was kind of the doomsday situation. It's like, oh, will they even win another game? Which was actually a very legitimate question at that point because they were kind of, really not playing well at all. And then Bill O'Brien made the gutsy call to switch from Thomas Castellanos to Grayson James, which in hindsight seems like a no-brainer, but in the moment it was a tough decision because Tommy has had a lot of good moments with the program. He's still an electrifying player when he's playing his potential, but for whatever reason, he wasn't really running well or throwing well. He looked like he was in his head, and he really regressed from last year and the start of this year until midway through this season. So kudos to Bill for making that decision because it was definitely the right one. So Grayson James has kind of a cool backstory. So he's from Texas. He was pretty highly recruited. Then he went to FIU, played there, didn't play too much at times, but played a little bit, kind of went back and forth. And then he went to Tennessee. He was going to go to Tennessee Martin, an FCS school, and then Tennessee Martin backed out and didn't give him an offer. So he basically had nothing. And then BC reached out, Jeff Hafley back then, and he kind of just like found a home and ended up becoming the starter. So it's kind of a cool underdog story. So he's been a fun guy to cover. So he came in and played really well, and then they finished the season 7-5, so they won 3 out of their last 4. Had a big win over Syracuse, big win over Pitt, so that was pretty impressive. And now they're playing Nebraska in the Pinstripe Bowl on the 28th. So Nebraska is obviously a storied program. They've been kind of down the past few years, but they're still in Nebraska, so it's a good opportunity. And they're looking for their first 8-win season BC since 2009. So we'll see if they can get it.
Wow, I didn't know it had been that long since they had an 8-win season, but because they went to so many of those bowl games for a while. But Bill O'Brien's done a great job, and I think more important, like from a like bird's eye level, like there was just more chatter and more notability about BC football this season than there's been in a long time. So that's a credit to him. The way that the program, has had this resurgence. Trevor, following your stories and what you wrote about throughout the course of the season was a pleasure. And then, you helped keep us apprised of what was going on in Chestnut Hill. And I think that they have a great opportunity ahead of themselves with this final game on the 28th. ABC noontime slot on a Saturday, like that's
Nice.
pretty good shit. So kudos to BC football on their season. Hopefully they wrap it up with a nice bow on top there. We talked about the college football playoff. Great games going on Friday, Saturday, and we also want to talk a little college hoops with you, Trevor. So as you know, we have couple fans of the Rhody Rams here on the podcast. Shout out to another Rhody Ram, Ben Richter. We appreciate you tuning in, and big congratulations to you and the new Mrs. Richter. Trevor and I had an opportunity to attend the very fun celebration of Mr. and Mrs. Richter a few weeks back. So we had to give Ben a shout out there. Anything you want to say to Ben, Trevor?
Yeah, I've got to echo that. I know Ben's listening. He's a loyal listener and he's a great friend. So I want to give Ben a huge shout out. I know I missed it last time. I sincerely apologize, but shout out to Ben Richter for being the man and uniting Josh and me to have come on this podcast. So we really appreciate you and we had a great time celebrating. So you're the man.
I gotta say one thing about the wedding. So Trevor is on the injured list. He's got a broken foot, and Trevor still dominated the dance floor in a fashion that was more impressive than most with two working feet. So
I appreciate that.
yeah, Trevor was out there, making sure everyone was moving and grooving. So
Hey, no excuses. Play like a champion. That's that. We love Trevor's attitude.
You got to power through.
had to power through, and a great time was had by all. But back to the college hoops scene a little bit, and want to start with New England and then maybe overall themes. But Kraz grew up in Rhode Island as a PC fan, went to URI, so he's conflicted.
Well, no. I didn't grow up as a PC fan. All four of my grandparents went to URI. My dad went to URI. So my uncle taught at PC, and they went to a bunch of games. So I was like, oh, this big stadium, and I don't know.
He took the bait. He took the PC
I
bait
took
when
the
he was
bait.
a
I
kid.
took the bait. I took the bait. But no, I'm roadie loyal, baby. I'm roadie loyal. I got.
He did have the shirt on last week, but obviously we've been actually paying attention to URI because they started out 9-0, and that game versus Providence was a big game for them. But New England college teams, obviously you got UConn and Dan Hurley in their program down there going for the three-peat. So, and Trevor, we know you got a vote with the AP. So talk to us a little bit about like what that looks like on a weekly basis for you, and what you're doing when you're evaluating the teams, what your considerations are.
Yeah, so the process, I think everyone approaches it in kind of a different way, but the way I approach it is I look at each team, I look at kind of the wins and losses from the week. If there are any notable losses, obviously you go down significantly. Any notable wins, you go up significantly. And then if you stay, if you beat the teams you're supposed to beat, it's just status quo. So it's kind of just a shuffling act. You kind of just move teams up and down essentially based on how they did. So that's the overall view. And then specifically, I kind of just look at so they send an email with like which teams lost to which teams. So if a team lost to an unranked team, then I'm generally going to move them down about 6 to 8 slots. If a team lost to a ranked team, I'm generally gonna move them down like 2 to 4 slots, give or take. And then if a team beat a ranked team, move up like 6 to 8. And if they lost, or move up 2 to 4. And if they beat an unranked team, move up 6 to 8. So that's kind of how I base it generally. There's no exact science to it. Everyone's always like, oh, you should have ranked so and so, such and such. But it's literally just a person's opinion, and each one kind of does their own thing. So that's kind of how I look at it, and I just kind of try to base it off what I think the general poll will be like and how people will base it. So I don't do anything too outlandish.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to look at it. You kind of have like a system in place in terms of what happens each week for each of the teams. I don't know if you had some sort of grading rubric or those sorts of things, but just in terms of like teams to be looking out for, I think does UConn have a chance for the three-peat? And I think Cooper Flagg from Maine being on Duke, like is he in line to sort of be player of the year in college?
Definitely possible. A team so I think the biggest storyline right now is the SEC just absolutely destroying everyone. I don't know if you guys realize how much they're dominating, but the team with the worst record in the SEC is South Carolina, and they're 7-3. So every team besides South Carolina is 8-2 or better. I just looked it up today. 4 teams already have 10+ wins. So they've just been dominating the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10. It's all SEC. So it's not just a football conference anymore. So, and
It's
the best
funny.
team, in my opinion, is Auburn. So I think they're the favorite to win it all, in my opinion, right now. They have this guy, Janai Broom, who's a walking double-double. He's a beast. So I think they're the best team. Florida looks really good. Tennessee looks really good. Iowa State in the Big 12 looks good. I think UConn has a chance to win it all, but they wouldn't pick right now. You can't really count out a Dan Hurley team, as you guys know well. So I think they'll be in the mix, but I don't think they'll three-peat. I think they'll make a run and then fall a little short. So I would put my money on an SEC team right now because they're just going to beat each other up all year and they're going to get tougher. So I think it's the best conference by a good margin this year.
Yeah, SEC dominating football and basketball on both fronts. So we're gonna keep the basketball talk going, but we're gonna shift to the team here in town, the Boston Celtics. So Big E set the stage with us for the Celtics the week that was, and we'll dive in with Trevor, and then Trevor will be off and running into his holiday season. Big E set the stage.
Yeah, so the week that was is, hey, the Celtics aren't going to Vegas. They're not part of the NBA Cup, so they got a little bit of, some time off this week. Yeah, there were a few games they played, but I wouldn't say they were the most exciting games. They played some competition that, really wasn't expected to be or not expected to be contenders this year, not expected to be contenders for the Cup. So we ended up playing Detroit on Thursday last week. took care of them pretty easily. Peyton Pritchard still doing Peyton Pritchard things. And then we played the Washington Wizards on Sunday and also dominated them as well. Really, not a lot to talk about to take away from those games, besides the fact that Kristaps Porzingis had to leave the game against Washington Wizards. I think post game they had said that he had said that he doesn't think it's anything serious. It was more precautionary, but I think anytime you see Porzingis go off the floor for any reason, it's a collective hold of the breath. So hopefully nothing major there for Porzingis, and we can get him back and healthy here soon.
Trevor,
One fun,
go ahead, J-Man.
just gonna say one fun stat that I saw today was the Celtics have 3 wins in Washington D.C. and the Washington Wizards only have 2 wins in Washington at home. So, pretty funny, pretty hilarious stat that the Celtics
It's
have
a
more
bad
wins
team. That's an
in
awful,
DC.
awful team.
So, but yeah, they're doing what they need to do. Is they're beating teams that been handling business, and they're 1 game I think now within Cleveland for the top spot. So they're slowly creeping back up there. And yeah, they're putting themselves in position, and they're getting rest while they're doing it too. So you can't really beat that.
Trevor, what are your thoughts? Just Celtics overall, the sort of first third of the season, and to me, I think they look primed to repeat so long as they're healthy.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that they're the definitive favorites. I mean, last year you could argue maybe the Nuggets, maybe the Wolves, whoever. This year the Celtics are absolutely the favorites. If they stay healthy, I would expect them to win. It's not going to be easy, but they probably will win every series in 5 or 6 games. I don't think or maybe even 4. I don't think any series is going to go 7. I think they're really that good. So I have 2 other thoughts. My first thought is that I'm a little sick of the people saying like it's kind of a boring regular season. Like, I mean, you don't have to watch. No one's like making you watch. I mean, it's still basketball. It's still enjoyable. So what if they hit a lot of threes? They're passing the ball well. It's a good product. It's aesthetically pleasing. So to those people, I would just say, if you don't want to watch, you don't have to watch, but don't complain about it. It is what it is. They're just really good. And then my second thought is that Peyton Pritchard has been awesome. I mean, I've always liked his game, even back in Oregon. I love the guy. So it's been really cool to watch him blossom into a star in front of our eyes. I mean, what's interesting to me is that he wanted to trade. Like people kind of forget that now because he's dominating, but he really wanted out. And it wasn't that he doesn't like Boston. He was just he wanted to ball because he's a baller at heart. And I think that people now realize like, oh, this guy actually knew what he was talking about. He's actually an animal. So there's a reason he wanted to trade, and he's really, proving that he is a star in the making. So I think that he's written the story of one of the stories of the NBA, honestly, not just the Celtics, is his emergence this year. And we've been lucky to watch it every night. So kudos to him for taking his opportunity and making the most of it.
Yeah, just following that up too, Trevor. I think outside of Brown and Tatum, you look at the team, and Peyton Pritchard's got to be right up there with the future of this franchise. They're going to be put in a crunch at some point here of what to do with these contracts after this year with Holiday and Derek White and Porzingis, and eventually it's going to become too much. One of the keys to keeping this run going, regardless of whatever happens this year, is Peyton Pritchard because he is on that pretty sweet deal that he signed before last season. So whenever they do have to make a change of some sort, Peyton Pritchard's going to be a big part of that team going forwards, not just now, but for the future too. So I really love the call out, just calling him on out, but I wanted to just, really say he really is not just the present, but he is the future of the franchise too.
Yeah, I think it'll be hard to keep Holiday and White long term. They might be able to keep one, but I don't think you can really have both. So I think Pritchard's fully capable of stepping in. Then maybe they'll have to get 1 or 2 more guys in free agency or via trade. But I think they're set for a while with Tatum and Brown. They're not going anywhere, in my opinion. So I think they're golden for a long time.
Agreed.
Guys, jump in.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say I think we have both those guys for at least 4 years, but either way, the thing with Peyton is, when I put together each week, the stats and all that stuff, I through the games, and I can slowly see Peyton Pritchard's numbers creeping up, and I mean the guy's averaging like 16 points a game, and like over the last week and a half, he went from like 14 to 16, and it's wild. It's an absolutely wild thing to see. For him to come off the bench and be playing, the same amount, almost same amount of minutes as the starters are getting. He's an integral part of this team. It's not just about starters anymore. It's really about the depth of that bench, and Peyton Pritchard really is that extendable sixth guy that we need, and he's going to be the one that's going to push us forward. And such a big. That's the other thing about him is he's such a big energy, his big spark of energy. In a way that Marcus Smart was. Obviously, it's not Marcus Smart, but he's gritty, and he brings that it factor, I think, to the team that already has a lot of it. So
No, he's got swagger in it, and I think he's such a likable player. Of like he's kind of I don't he's obviously not Steph Curry. I'm not saying anything of the sort. But what I'm saying is he has like that aura, if you will, that the kids are saying, like just a baller, like can relate. We're all the same height as him, pretty much. Like and he's just going out there and showing off like each night. And as Kraz was saying, like he's getting run at the end of these games over Drew Holiday, and more. I feel like more often than not. So and as everyone talked about, he's definitely a future key component of the team. The deal that he's on is probably the biggest steal. Best GM in basketball, Brad Stevens, by far. Just
Without a doubt.
the depth.
Isn't it a 4-year deal, 54 million or something?
Nah, dude, it's like I think he's getting paid like $7 million a year. Like he's making chump change in the NBA. To be quite
Yeah,
honest,
Jaden Springer is making almost as much as him, and Jaden Springer I think is making $5 million. So
yeah,
it's good job, Brad.
yeah. So that Peyton Pritchard will get a fat bag the next time that he's up for a contract though, and that's my only worry. Does he play himself into a situation where he's at a max contract on another team? I don't know. Trevor, do you know how like the NBA works with contracts? I feel like it's one of the most confusing things just in terms of like what they can offer and when they can offer. And I know teams have like a better opportunity to retain their own talent, correct?
Yeah, I do my best to follow, but the nuances of it are a little tricky. But
Fair enough. All right, one final question for Trevor to wrap things up with him. Any stories that are coming up that we should be keeping our eyes open for, or anything that you've covered over the past couple of months, since the last time we talked to you on episode 2, and now that folks should go back and revisit?
sure. Yeah, so there was a BC fan named Ron Salomon who's 91 years old, and he's an absolute legend. He's Jewish too, so you guys will get a kick out of it. So he's been to 400 of 402 possible BC home games. He missed two. One was due to a bar
Wow.
mitzvah, and one was due to a trip, and he ended up watching that game with Cuba Gooding Jr. at an airport. So those are two key things since the stadium opened in 1957. So he's also lived a colorful life in many other ways. So I really enjoyed writing that and talking to him over Zoom. He's a true character and a great guy. So that was a lot of fun. And then one coming up is Bryce Steele, a BC football player who unfortunately had cancer, but has since overcome it and is back on the field now. So I haven't interviewed him yet, but I know a little bit of the story and I'm excited to learn more about it. So that one's in the works as well. So I recommend checking that one out.
Awesome. And Trevor, where can people find you to cover everything that you have going on?
So I'm on Twitter at Trevor Hass, Hass, and Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want, Snapchat, it's all over. So anywhere you want. Stories appear in the Globe, Boston.com, Duxbury Clipper, Celtics blog, a bunch of different places. So yeah, always appreciate you guys having me on. Happy to do it.
Always a pleasure to have you on. The door's open anytime. Our first recurring guest, Trevor Haas from Boston.com. Thank you so much, Trevor. Appreciate it. Have a great holiday season. We'll see you down the line.
You got it. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, Trevor.
Take care, Trevor.
All right.
Is that
Trevor.
Gabe?
Yo.
Gabriel!
Hey!
Where'd he come from?
He's back. He's back.
He's alive. He's alive.
He's alive. We'll have you set the stage for the Bruins in just a second, but always great to have Trevor on. Always appreciate his time.
Absolutely.
It is crazy to think. I went back and listened a little bit to episode 2 today that he was on. We've come a long way, fellas. We've come a long way. So we'll keep getting better, keep doing some fun things along the road. But Gabe, pleasure to see your beautiful face. You're swagged out in all your Bruins apparel. Look at Krause's new background. Everyone's got a sweet background now.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
Look at that. LeBron blows.
he sure
Still
does.
He might actually.
I'm surprised there's not a Jeter takes A-Rod shirt there too,
Oh,
Sam.
that's so good. He actually might too.
I feel like as Kraz develops the studio there, like you might see the swap out of a shirt now and then. There's probably some other things that he has in the apparel bucket. But Gabe, great to see you. Set the stage for the Bruins.
Yeah.
An interesting week as they went out west.
That's right. Thanks for letting me come on here just for a little bit towards the end.
Hey, a Boston sports brother is
Yeah.
always allowed on
Bro.
the pod, so no need to do any of those pleasantries. You're with your
Good,
your
you.
crew. Good, you.
So for the viewers out there who don't know, I did have emergency surgery last week. Have been recovering, feeling pretty good, getting my strength back, but it gets a little tough to sit up and do hour-long podcasts at the moment. So I decided to hop on for the Bruins Minute, Bruins 5 minutes, whatever we want it to be, and we'll go from there. I got it. So Bruins, they are not, no disrespect to anyone with mental health illnesses, but they are bipolar. This team is just, you got a 4 game winning streak going on the road, and then it's like the old Bruins return. They're getting blown out. Who was it against? Winnipeg. They gave up 8 goals, lost 8-1. One thing I loved about that game is that Jeremy Swayman ate all 8 of those goals.
Left out
I
the
Nom, 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 nom,
dry.
nom, 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 nom.
he
Eat
ate all
those
those
goals.
he ate those pucks. And I think that was a good statement by the coach and the coaching staff. I don't know if Swayman now with his contract has a little bit more of a bigger head now, maybe causing some ruffles in the locker room. So it was kind of good to see him out there taking the brunt of that loss. Players really didn't have his back afterwards. They were like, yeah, we all deserve to get taken down for that one equally. Like, it is what it is. But moving on from that, they had another horrible loss against Vancouver. Oh no, sorry, not against Vancouver. Who'd they play? Seattle.
Kraken. Kraken,
Seattle.
yeah.
That's right. They lose bigly again, very bigly. You start getting a little bit concerned now. Like, okay, this happened. This hasn't really been happening under Joe Sacco. This was more kind of a trend under their old coach Montgomery. So it's things are feeling a little odd. Trade talks are coming up. What's going on in the locker room. And then they take it to their rivals, Vancouver Canucks. They win 5-1. Pasternak wakes up. He has 4 points, a goal, and 3 assists. And this is one of the quality opponents I've been talking about that the Bruins need to beat. They've beaten a lot of cupcakes this year, and it's time for them to start kind of finding their groove against these better teams. And they have a chance now coming up against Calgary and against Edmonton to finish the road trip here. And those are 2 quality teams. So if they can get out of there with a couple wins or even get some overtime games to get a point, that would be great for the Bruins moving forward. I wonder how you guys are feeling about them. I feel like they're one of the hardest teams to bet in Boston right now.
Well,
I
I wouldn't
can't
touch
even
them.
can't put my money on them at all. So
No.
I don't know if you guys have any
Yeah,
any
you just
takes.
like you said, Gabe, you just never know what you're going to get one night. It's one night they can put up 5 goals and the defense can be on, or they can let up 5 goals and score one. So it's like really, it completely is a flip flop, and that's the thing about them is, I, I I think their scoring is a huge issue. I think they're giving up 5 way more than they're scoring 5, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's a huge issue. Like, it's not sustainable. The power play sucks. I'm just watching the game the other night, and like I was watching the Seattle game up to, I don't know why I'm staying up till like midnight watching these things. Like, what am I doing to myself? It's like so stupid. I'm losing sleep, not literally, but I'm like, I should be going to bed earlier. And they're playing like a solid period, but they have the scoring chances, but they're just not putting them in. And the scoring chances are okay, but like they get so many shots blocked, and they're just not grade A chances. It's really frustrating, and they don't take advantage of the power play. They're missing Bergie in the bumper. That they haven't been able to figure that out since he left. So it's just really disappointing. It really is.
Yeah. And you mentioned Bergeron. I mean, this new guy, Elias Lindholm, is kind of supposed to take over that role. And he's really, I mean, he's not a bad player. He's played decently, but it's just not the production you were expecting, coming into the year. They're saying, oh, Elias Lindholm automatically slots into that number one center position. And he's doing really nothing with that opportunity, and it's hurting the team. Another guy who they traded for Zadorov, I think, has been playing a lot better. I love his mindset in the game of hockey. I think the Bruins kind of need that. But yeah, I mean, it is really frustrating. It's frustrating. I would love to see this team, like I said, just continue to roll along on this road trip and come back home on Saturday. They have another lollipop in Buffalo who's lost like 10 or 11 in a row now. So if you get these points rolling, then we're looking good. I think the overall picture on this team right now is exactly what it presents as, is they're a very middle of the pack team. And that doesn't mean they're not going to make the playoffs. They certainly could make the playoffs. I think they will, but I really just see them as a middle of the league team right
They're a
now.
wild card team, right? And I think that's where they are. If you look at the standings right now, they're technically third in the Atlantic, but they've played four more games than Tampa, who
There he
is
goes. His
right on
game's
our
in
heels.
hand.
I'm
Almost as
sorry, I
good as
want to
the
do this,
Cavs.
but like they can't string together a bunch of good wins in a row besides that 4 game winning streak that they had before going on the trip. You look at who they're about to play. They're about to play Calgary, which Calgary's no slouch. They're probably pretty equal to where the Bruins are right now. Then you're going to play a team that went to the Stanley Cup last year and the Oilers. Yeah, we got the Sabres and we got 2 games against the Blue Jackets, but we also got 2 games against the Caps, who've been one of the best teams in hockey. What I expect is going to happen in these next 7 games is they'll win 3 of them. They'll win the 3 games that they should. They'll maybe lose one of these other games in overtime, and we're going to be exactly right where we are right now at the beginning of the year. We're straddling third, right on the wild card precipice for the season. There's really
But
not a lot to talk about until some things start to change.
but that's okay because they overachieved last year, and we can all agree on that. They were not supposed to be where they were last year. They were like 8 points behind Florida, which was crazy. They played way up to their standards, and they actually spent money this year, and they should be playing better. So I think there is a chance that they will turn a corner. I'm really hopeful. I think if they start putting pucks in the net, they start figuring out the power play. I am hopeful, and hockey is the one sport where you can just squeak in, and they do have the goalie when he plays, when he is committed, when the team is committed to playing around him, where he can stand on his head for a month or 2 months. And this is the one sport where you just got to squeak in. You just got to get in the NHL, and you can make a run.
I think the positive to take away is just that the there's so much room for growth and there's so much more that we think that this team is capable of that they haven't reached their ceiling. And so that's still there for them to do. I do think Don Sweeney will have a challenge come the trade deadline, and looking at, as Marina talked about last week, they need some more offensive firepower and playmaking ability, and they got to figure out that power play and get that going. It was nice to see the goals in that game against Vancouver, but it can't, as Gabe said at the top, be as bipolar and so like uneven as it is. They have to be more steady. But
Yeah.
they have but if they are able to continue on this pace where they keep themselves in the playoffs, all it takes is a few more of those weeks that they had about a week and a half. But they can't have are the weeks they just had. What they need to have are more of the weeks that they had 2 weeks ago. And go 3-0, go 3-1, and pick up points along the way. That's really what it comes down to.
I think the problem with this past week, though, is it's not just that they lost, it's how they lost. Like they got their doors blown off. And I think that's where I'm frustrated is it's like it's a complete lack of effort. And yeah, it's great that we won that game against Vancouver and we won that one handily. I would have rather had seen us won that one game against Vancouver, but been in the other games and showed some fight. And
I
that's my
gotta,
problem with
I
them.
gotta, I gotta say though, I watched 2 out of the 3 periods against the Kraken, and they're down 2-1 going into the third, and they played really well. I'm telling you, they were out shooting the Kraken. Marshy was lighting a fire. He had a penalty shot goal. They were putting pucks on net. I didn't watch the third period, so I don't know what happened, but that I think that game was a little deceiving, Eric. I want to say the score wasn't the way the game was being played. Something happened in the third where it got out of hand, but I don't know. That one was a little bit of an aberration. The other one where they lost 8-1, you can't give them any, they suck
There's
there,
no
but
positives to take away from
yeah,
that one.
but the one I watched against Seattle, I don't think it was. I think it was an anomaly.
I'll take that
I
back.
did.
There is a positive. Jeremy Swayman had to eat all those goals, so that was a positive.
Not for sure. But J-Matt, that's why you've stayed up and tortured yourselves. You just brought the insight into the game that none of us had.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really why you stayed up.
And
So
Josh he's right. Like there was a good effort against Seattle, and Eric, you're right in saying like there needs to be changes made. And I think that we're seeing slowly things are changing a little bit. I mean, with Jim Montgomery, that was a big change. I think now that they've claimed this new guy, Oliver Wahlstrom, off the waivers from the New York Islanders. He hasn't had a great year at all, and that's not to say that's like the fix of everything, but it is something that I've seen Bruins fans get a bit excited about. He's a big boy, a big right winger. He's
From
a
Portland,
first
Maine.
Portland, Maine. He's a first round talent back in, I think, like 2011 draft or something like that. He's still young. So maybe he just needs to change the scenery and he'll pop with the Bruins, and that could provide some more offense for us. Again, Hampus Lindholm is still out. Hamper is dealing with some lower body issues, still really struggling with it, it sounds like. But he brings a lot of hopefully offensive firepower as well. So there are some changes kind of coming in the pipeline a little bit. But it is very frustrating. It's very slow moving. This is kind of random, but I was taking a look at the Providence Bruins, just to kind of see like, hey, who could maybe come up from there and provide a little spark for us. And the Providence Bruins they're kind of like same record as the Boston Bruins are right now. You have Georgi Merkulov, who we've kind of heard a lot about. He's a left winger. He's kind of been like back and forth a little bit from AHL to NHL, but he is on an absolute tear for the Providence Bruins right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a call up for him shortly, and to hopefully bring some more energy as well to this lineup.
Yeah, any goal scoring prowess that they can add to the lineup will be good. You might as well look within the system to see what you have, and start there first, and then as the trade deadline comes along,
And
evaluate that.
Matty Poitras is still down in Providence too. So like he's proving that he's not an AHL player by any means. Like he's scoring, he's got goals, assists. He's an NHL player.
Call him
But
up.
Get him back
call him
up.
up.
Yep.
They
Call him
got some
up.
players that they need to call up and see if
100%.
that's
Yeah.
gonna work.
One little tidbit about Wahlstrom, the Portland native. I don't know if anyone caught this. It was a cool little clip, but Nesson used to do a really cool thing back in the day where
Yeah,
they
the
used
goal.
to they used to have these like, young hockey players, probably like, I don't know, 10, 12, do these shootout little things during the intermissions. And Wahlstrom did the Michigan, like a take on the Michigan that I've never even seen before. So if you haven't seen that, seek it out. It was a pretty cool clip. It's kind of all over social media, not all over, but you can find it on social media. So just something cool about
If you go to the Bruins on Twitter,
guy.
you'll find it. It's up there.
You'll find it. Yeah,
for sure.
For
Just want
sure.
to shout
Well,
that out.
the Red Sox
Nesson used to be cool.
play on Nesson, which is a terrible product. However, the Red Sox called up the Chicago White Sox and finally made a deal and finally have some offseason chatter. Kraz set the stage. Garrett Crochet, the new ace of the Boston Red Sox.
We can all finally take a deep breath.
I don't think so. I have something to say.
I don't think so.
But
You guys,
You can take a deep breath, but not the collective.
I'm taking a deep breath because this rotation is starting to actually look pretty decent. When you have Garrett Crochet and then you have Lucas Giolito, Tanner Howe, Cutter Crawford, Brian
need
Bale.
more.
We do need more,
Let
but
him go.
the off season hasn't even started yet, and that's kudos to fucking Craig Breslow because right now he's working tirelessly to get a deal done with Seattle. The name I'm hearing the most is Luis Castillo. He's probably going to be the guy that they move just because of his contract. They signed him to a bigger deal contract. The younger guys, Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, are brought up from the Mariners system. So I don't see them moving away from them. I see them moving away from Luis Castillo, and I would be fine with. And I mean, Luis Castillo was lights out. I played fantasy baseball for a while. I had this guy on my team. He's a fucking stud. Change of scenery could actually be kind of good for him. And I would definitely be willing to part with like a Marcelo Mayer and a Willie Abreu, as much as I love Willie Abreu, for another starter, and then sign a right-handed bat because we still desperately need that right-handed bat.
What position does Castillo play?
He's a pitcher.
Pitcher.
Oh, he's a
Pitcher.
pitcher. Okay.
Yeah, he's a
So another
he's
pitcher.
He's a pitcher.
Yeah.
He started with Cincinnati, and then I forgot where he moved to. He jumped around a little bit, but the guy can fucking throw the ball.
Are they
at the end
gonna
of the
Sam?
day.
Do you think they're gonna invest in the field on the around the diamond?
They have with Cedena. They signed him to that 10-year deal. I expect him to have a much better year. He signed that deal last year, that 10 million, 100 and some odd, I think 10-year, 162 million. And I think he was just trying to overplay. At one point, he had the most RBIs on the team, and he had the most strikeouts on the team. Kind of Dustin Pedroia-esque, where you just let him do his thing till he finds his groove. Because no matter where you plug him into the infield or the outfield, he's gonna be a defensive whiz out there. And that's the good thing about him, and that's the flexibility that we have is we can kind of move him around as a piece in the 9 hole and hope that he develops as a great hitter. That's my kind of outlook on him.
Sam, for me, these trades are all great and everything, but the Red Sox are still not spending money, it seems like.
No, they haven't.
They signed Aroldis Chapman to that, $11 million contract or whatever it may be, but it's still worrisome to me that this team is not okay with dishing out money for players. And I mean, I'm happy we got Garrett Crochet. I'm happy if we trade for Castillo. That would be amazing. Like our starting pitching, our lineup would be great. But I just have no faith in this ownership still to put their fucking wallet on the table.
So I would expect them to overpay for one of these 3 guys: Anthony Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, or Alex Bregman. One of those guys will be on the team come March. I guarantee it. Which one it is?
Let's clip this, and we're gonna play this back in March.
My personal favorite would be Alex Bregman, just because he knows Cora. He has a lot of postseason experience. We can figure out you could always package Yoshida in a deal and figure it out. And
you don't have to package anything. He's a free agent.
Who? No, because then now you have a spot open, because if you have Costas at first and
gotcha. I understand what you're saying. I thought you were talking about to get Bregman. I was like, no, you don't need to package anything. You got it. Like, you can sign it.
Well, yeah, no, yeah. But
I get what you were saying, though. I understand.
And at that point, I'd rather get rid of Yoshida's contract for a bag of balls.
I think everyone wants to get rid of Yoshida's contract, but like it's. I don't want to say it's an albatross, but I think it's not an easy contract to get rid of.
He's a good number 7 hitter, but besides that, he's not what we thought he was going to be. He can make contact.
Sam, I got a question for you. So I think we can agree that they've scored a lot of runs last year. Pitching was a huge issue. That they gave up, I don't know how many runs. I think their run differential was 4 or something like that. They basically scored as many as they let up. And I think a big proponent of why they lost a lot of games were errors. They led the league in errors. So if you bring back a lot of the same players and you don't invest in anything new, what's going to change in that aspect? Because if you're not getting Devers from third, who made a ton of errors, maybe over to a DH where he probably should be, what's going to change? Like that's a fundamental thing, I think, is playing defense, and they're going to keep losing games if that doesn't change.
So that's where Cedar Rafael comes into play, because he is a defensive whiz, and so there, and this is,
I disagree. I mean, I agree and I disagree, because I'm looking right now at how many errors he made. 12 errors on the team last year, which led the team. So it's like he makes those great plays, and
then their infield was injured for the majority of the season last year in Story and Costas. I mean, and those are.
And he didn't know which glove to throw on that day. Do I throw on an outfield? Do I throw on a 16-inch glove? Do I throw on a 12-inch glove? It's different when you.
I think that's been an issue for a couple of years now. It's not just last year. It's been a consistent issue. Is fielding.
It's been an issue for Devers for a little bit, and like that's not anything that anyone here can deny. That defensively he's had his issues.
No, well,
do we all agree?
Yeah,
Devers makes the hard plays look easy. He makes the easy plays hard, and I don't know why he does that. It frustrates the fuck out of me. An easy ground ball, he just fucking lets up. But the one that's a hot shot, that's a one hopper and a bad one hopper, he can just fucking snag. The kid chooses when to play, and that's what's kind of frustrating. That's why I want him in the DH role. But as far as Cedar Rafael, I mean, you as a major league player, not know where you're going to be playing that day, and walk in and like, okay, Cedar, you're playing second today. It's like, okay, well, I take my reps to second anyways, but now I need to be ready for second base. Where yesterday I was playing in the outfield and I had everything prepped for the outfield, and I'm not trying to make, what's it called, excuses for the kid, but he's young. He's playing in a bunch of different spots. Mm-hmm. He just got a huge contract.
No, but to your point, Sam, like
played defensively well.
To your point, I think they need to start spending and like really look at Bregman, because he would shore up your infield, and then that would put Rafaela in the outfield, and he wouldn't have to have this "where am I playing every single day" type of situation.
Second base if Grissom, because there's going to be a competition between Grissom, Rafaela, and Christian Campbell for second.
But I think they need to invest in a player, especially
like Bregman,
we know is good at. He's a good defender.
They need to spend money.
Yeah, they have to, and it would shore up some of their defensive, miscues at other places.
Yeah, they still got to go out and spend money. They get credit for Crochet, but they don't get full credit quite yet because they do need to go bring in a stalwart right-handed bat that can slot in a 2 through 6 slot into the lineup. So
What does Teoscar Hernandez play? Does he play second?
He's in the outfield.
He's the outfielder.
Okay.
So that plenty of players out on the market, still time to do things. Slowly but surely.
We got our big in season edition or off season edition in Trevor Story, who's played maybe 60 games for this team since he signed. So that's going to be our big off move besides Garrett Crochet. Book it right now. I guarantee.
Costas pack. He was out for a majority part of the season, so don't forget that.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, they improved the team, which is what we've been asking for. They have more work to do, but now money. Big E has work to do.
I got work to do because it's my favorite part of the podcast. It's time. I'm never gonna break my mic. I could get louder. Trust me.
Let's hear it.
It's time for yeah and oh yeah. Can I get an oh yeah? Or can I get a yeah?
Oh yeah.
Can I get a yeah yeah
A what?
Yeah
yeah
We got some good ones this week.
Don't you know?
Who's kicking it off?
I'll kick it off.
Who's gonna? Oh yeah!
Oh yeah! Caitlin Clark, Time Magazine Athlete of the Year. Oh yeah!
Oh yeah!
And Travis Hunter won the Heisman.
Hell yeah! Hey, I want to give a little time to both of those. Caitlin Clark, I think she had the way I can describe it is I can't say that there's been another athlete that's had as much of an impact on a league like she has. And the only reason I say that is because she is a monumental star that is bringing the WNBA back, or not back, into the forefront. So greatly deserved on her part. Also want to give flowers to Travis Hunter. I think it's great to see a player who plays two ways. And regardless whether he was a wide receiver or cornerback or whatever he does at the next level, he is dominant at his position. The fact he was dominant at both, I think it's just a throwback to see someone who plays both ways win. So I thought that was cool and cool for us as football fans.
Yeah, I think he deserved it. Genty obviously had a lot of votes go his way. Fantastic player and put up unbelievable numbers, but there really hasn't been a player with the impact that Hunter has had on both sides of the ball, I think, ever. And I think that's what won him the Heisman. I understand he's not maybe the highest ranked player as a wide receiver or corner, but the fact that he's doing both can't go understated. There is literally nobody else in the sport of football at that level or higher that is doing that. And he should go to the NFL and play both ways. I'll love Marcus Jones a little bit, but probably have more offensive.
He'll there's a decent opportunity. He might be playing for your Patriots next year, to be honest. So
I don't know. They need a fatty. Yeah, they need a fatty on the line.
I think
I don't disagree, but I think they might see his talent and say, "Hey, we could use a player like that." From a wide receiver standpoint, he will be the absolute best wide receiver on the team.
Get ready for a trade down and stockpile of picks, boys.
Get ready. They'll draft Hunter and they'll be like, "Oh wait, he plays defensive back too."
Yeah, they're gonna draft a wide receiver in the first round, and what we all know is gonna be a bust, something like that.
Oh wait,
I don't think Travis Hunter will be a bust. So if we draft him, I think we actually might have a good wide receiver.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think
he's wide receiver.
He's kind of a generational talent, just like because he does play those two sides of the ball, and his versatility is it's a Bill Belichick wet dream.
It is.
He would love to have Travis Hunter on his old Patriots team, I bet.
Oh my God.
We'll see. It'll be interesting if they keep that slot because he'll probably be there. So
want to learn how to return punts.
I will say we got two really good oh yes. We got a lot of ohs this week. So who wants to kick it off?
Put them all on the table and let's dissect.
Yeah. All right. Jonathan Kraft, I have to say. Felger and Mass were talking about it, and he was like, the only two owners you ever see are the what's it called? Jerry that minion Jerry Jones and then the Crafts. And it's like Jonathan purposefully was waiting, knowing that he was gonna be on, and saw that they were going on a run, pretending the right thing. So, I mean, yeah, I know he owns a football team, but since we see no football schemes from sitting up there, he doesn't.
I think he was actually pissed. Like, I think he was writing notes, and
I think he was pissed too, but I don't think he
I
was.
kind of oh yeah a little bit. Like, it's kind of nice to see a little bit of like
Oh
backbone.
yeah.
Oh yeah, like a little backbone, you know. And I'm like, God, it's good to see that because I don't think Kraft has it anymore. So
I agree with that.
hopefully he has it.
I kind of oh yeah a little
The
bit to
flip
that too.
flop.
At least there was some emotion being showed, and like even if he knew the camera was coming on him, like it's this team is so fucking frustrating. Like it's nice to see like the owners actually react to it and be like it kind of makes you feel like change might be coming
Hopefully.
down the
Well,
road.
I yeah with it because unfortunately my gut tells me that they're going to keep Gerard for another year, and they're
Oh,
not going to do
please
it.
no.
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
So
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
about
about
that.
that
I think
anymore.
the tide is turning on that. I think
I
Yeah.
just said my gut says this. Not
I
that's not what I want. I'm just saying my gut is telling me that he's going to stay here for another year. That's all I'm
Yeah.
They
saying.
just
I
haven't
agreed with
improved.
you up until yesterday when he
I
had
did
his
too.
post game meltdown in the constant walk back that we talked about with Trevor. Yeah. Oh, the whole we talked about Caitlin Clark, Time Magazine Athlete of the Year, but some of the WNBA chatter outside the game and the hate that Caitlin Clark receives is out of control. I don't know who's uncovered this, but please enlighten us.
Yeah, so I was writing a little bit about this. Like, of course, with a there's I mean with an oh yeah, there's a yeah oh attached to it here. Yeah, I mean with Cheryl Swoops is on a podcast with Gilbert Arenas, and she's always trash talking Caitlin Clark, saying how it's she's not good for the game, and that's not how the WNBA came up to be to focus on one player. And then you have this lady Sheila Johnson. I believe she's like an owner
The
Owner
Mystics
of the
on the
Mystics,
Washington.
owner
co-owner
of
of the
the
Mystics.
Mystics, saying that the whole WNBA should have been on the cover of the
Get that
Time
shit out of
magazine.
here.
It's like, why can they not give her kudos for how amazing of a player she is? And I'm not gonna bring like race or I don't want to talk about that right now. Like there's clearly like some type of like weird race factor going on, but it's like give Caitlin Clark her cookies and it will make your league probably the most successful it's ever been ever. If you want to make money, if you want this league to be successful in the future, you invest in Caitlin Clark. You don't invest in Angel Reese. Not to say you don't invest in her at all, but it's like you got to invest in the players that bring you money
There,
and profit. Like
there's something to be said for riding the coattails of Caitlin Clark, and
ride them, baby.
it's an ascension like we haven't seen in a female athlete probably ever, to be quite honest. And that's the baffling part is that she has this opportunity and this captive audience that a female athlete really hasn't had, and they're like tearing her down for it, which is just crazy. I don't want to get into the other
Well,
nonsense
you
about
guys
it.
know how much I got into the WNBA last year, just because
Yeah.
like Caitlin Clark was coming in and Angel Reese, and it was
You
was
went
kind
on
of
the
a
way to
Connecticut Sun,
fucking
we're also
Mohegan
number
Sun.
one.
I went to a freaking game. It was like, come on, like
You
they
drove down
like,
to Connecticut to go to that game.
and
bro.
now with these people saying this stuff, it discourages me as a WNBA fan. It makes me not want to watch it. It makes me want to tune in only to Caitlin Clark games, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's a problem because as we said, like they have that opportunity and they're royally screwing it up. A royal screw up was Bill reaching out to the Jets inquiring about their head coaching position. What a moron. Like don't you are the master grudge holder of all time, Bill, and you don't think that they remember that you resigned on a fucking napkin? Like come on. Come on.
Yeah, I almost have a hard time believing it's real, and if it is, like, Bill, what the hell are you doing?
Who knows? Well, best of luck to Chapel Hill Bill and
Chapel Bill.
Chapel Bill. NBA
You,
ratings are
you,
suffering big time.
Really?
I think
Yeah.
viewership is down like almost 30%. I think a big problem is that networks like NBC Sports Boston don't really exist in many other markets. And they've diversified the product in terms of where it's available so much so that it's impossible to find games unless they're nationally televised. So NBA has got to figure it out. Got to
yeah,
figure it
Yeah.
out.
I'm gonna have to here to watch this game and have an app here, but
It's that, but it's also I think the game itself has changed a lot over the years. I mean, you do have LeBron and these older veterans kind of getting ready to exit the league, and it's like who's ready to take on that next step to be the face of the league, and then you have
Tatum.
the
He's
Celtics.
he's located in San Antonio, Gabe.
Yeah. Oh, Wemby.
I,
um,
I,
Hey,
but it's
Wemby.
like your teams are. My point is, teams are jacking up threes. It's a very offensive game now. There's literally no effort on defense. It looks like when teams are playing, and I think fans are starting to get annoyed by that. I think they want more of a competitive basketball game.
Well, it's
well,
interesting. I feel like the Celtics have ruined it a little bit for some folks. And what I mean is like their style of jacking up threes and what they do, they absolutely utterly dominate. But I think a lot of other teams that try and imitate what they do, it's not a good product. What the
The
Celtics put on
Celtics
the
also
floor
play
is a good
defense.
product.
Because they
The
hit
They
Celtics
there.
play,
also play
but they play
defense.
defense, but they will also switch it up. They will go inside. They had the oop game that's going on too. Like they're not a one trick pony when it comes to 3 point shots, which I think is a misconception about the Celtics, right? But I think because their numbers are high, it's a copycat league. You see a lot of teams trying to do the same thing that they're doing and not even coming close to the level of
I
success.
I think the play-in tournament has a little bit of a play in this because the regular season's so long. It's 6+ months. If you think it's April, it's October to April. So that's, yeah, 6+. And it's a long time. And you just have to get into the playoffs as what, like a 10 seed or something like that. You can squeak in now.
The
So
play in.
the regular season's not really anything to what it used to be. And
So right.
I think you have to look at it and be like, do you really need to start the league in October if you're going to have this long of a regular season with the playoff format that you currently have? So,
no.
like, I don't know, it's something to think about.
Get rid of the
That
plan.
could be why.
It's so useless, those games
Yeah.
and those teams, like, and all it is them trying to have another thing to market. Uh it was funny if you
Like
recall
reports.
a long time ago, Mark Cuban made a comment about the NFL that about the pigs and the hogs, and that eventually it gets slaughtered. Well, the NBA has gotten to this point and NFLified the NBA with all these little stupid little, like, I think the in-season tournament is fucking garbage. I think
Where's
it's so
Where's Mark
stupid.
Cuban these days?
He's
Sitting
collected a
sidelines.
$3 billion check and it rode off into the sunset.
I think he may be a smart guy, right? Like I think bringing up that comment that you made that pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. I think he saw that, hey, I'm gonna make an unbelievable investment on what I put in here. I'll still be a part owner, and it will be what it will be. I'm still gonna ride away with my billions of dollars. Good for him. But I think there is some
And you
truth
see
to
the
what he was
Celtics
saying.
owner doing it
I
too.
do think I do think well, I think the Celtics are doing it for different reasons. I think they're doing it because there's a
And
familial
inheritance
issue,
and stuff too.
and that's part of the reason why they're doing it. I don't think Wick wants to sell. I think he's
Bad.
being forced to sell. So
Bad.
that's a different story.
Yeah.
I would the one thing I would like to retort on this though is, yeah, the ratings are down in the regular season, but I think when it comes to playoff basketball, the ratings go up because the games are played much tighter.
So good.
It's an exciting product. So I think, yeah, the regular season ratings are down, but am I worried about the game as a whole going forwards? No, I'm fine with it.
Agree. Two quick O's to lead us out, and then we'll hit the pike. Devondre Campbell just quit on his team in the middle of the game. Now, somebody brought up a very good point that LeGarrette Blount did this to Pittsburgh, and then we picked him up, and he had an unbelievable run with us the
Come
rest
on,
of this year.
Patriots.
But Devondre Campbell in a football.
We went to
game,
that game, Gabe. You remember
Uh,
that playoff
What?
game against the
What?
Colts where he ran for like
yeah.
300 yards? That was
Oh,
amazing.
they crushed the Colts. Oh my God.
yeah, that was post Deflategate, but they took care of business then. And then we got the MLB hot stove after the winter meetings conclude. And
Can I take this one? Like it just absolutely bugs me because I think like going back 15, 20 years ago, you would have the winter meetings, things would start falling. And obviously this year the Soto domino fell. We got a Max Free domino. There were a few things that fell, but I would feel like by the time you went to like New Year's, like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, people tended to start going to teams. Now this shit doesn't actually happen until like
There's a lot of
spring
holdouts.
training. And it's part of the reason why I have fallen out of love with baseball and
It's the
why,
new norm.
I've started to like despise the sport is because they drag everything out. It's not fun to see who's switching teams every year. It's not like the NFL and the NBA and the NHL where like those moves happen once free agency opens. So again, just another reason why, like, not just as a Red Sox fan, but as a fan of the sport, I'm frustrated with baseball.
put a signing date in place in terms of when this period ends, or you got to do something because to go back on what you just said, like the past couple of weeks with baseball were awesome. That was the best baseball talk, the most excited that we've all been about baseball in a long time. Hell, we did a whole fucking separate episode on it. I mean, like the hot stove
Shout out
was-
Jemai.
Yeah, shout out Jemai
Yeah.
for sure. But it was cooking for a minute, and now it's just off, just like completely off, and it probably will be until post New Year's. But with that being said, that wraps up the oh yeahs and yeah ohs, the penalty box. I mean, feel free to throw the Crafts in there right now if you want to. But
Andrew
they
John
have
Henry
to
too.
evaluate
Yep.
John Henry.
They're
Yep,
getting
the
at John
Sixers,
Henry's
yeah.
level though. It's been time.
Yeah.
John he's gotten us a lot of championships.
Oh.
The same with Bob Kraft, and they're both not spending, so like, and not investing in the team. So
Stop riding the coattails of your championships and continue to try and win some. So because you only get so much good grace, especially
Stop
when
buying
you do
building giant lighthouses that aren't necessary. Like
the Schmenza, as they say.
and building concert halls. And one thing that you'll see is maybe you're on the road is the Schmenzer down at Gillette, but you won't see that if you're on the Pike heading out anywhere for the holiday season. So the
how do you
Bruins-
build that and not think like that looks like a giant dick? Like like how does that get through so many people's hands? Like then Robert Kraft, who probably can barely see, like it's like, oh, that looks great, yeah.
It's been
improves it.
erected beautifully.
Don't worry, you can see the Providence and Boston. You can go all the way to the top. And maybe one day the Boston Sports Bros can ring the bell. We probably will never be invited.
I don't think we're going to be invited. That's okay.
That's all right. That's all right. Anyways, all right. This week the Bruins wrap up the West Coast road trip, Calgary tomorrow and Edmonton on Thursday, and then they're back for some home cooking on Saturday versus the Sabres. Pats get flexed to a 4:25 time slot on Sunday. The media lost their mind about having to cover a late game, and then the Celtics with a slew of games over the next week and a half or so.
With that shitty Christmas Day game, because Embiid
Celtics.
probably won't be playing. I'm guessing that McCann tore his MCL, so one of the actually good things that's been going on for Philly this year is not going to be playing.
Yeah,
So
that is unfortunate.
it's going to be a laugher of a game, which is disappointing as a Celtics fan because
I'll
you'd like to
take
see
it.
something competitive.
I'll take it.
Hey, yeah. Well, we'll keep stacking up the wins, getting rest for this team.
I think that's one thing the NBA does do right is like the Christmas games at least. You know,
Oh,
we hate that-
actually,
You have to have Netflix
I have a
this year.
retroactive Yao. Yao to the NFL. Get out of Christmas Day. That is not your day. Get the fuck out of there. I do not want to watch any games on Netflix.
Well, you're not going to be able to because it ain't going to load.
Well,
Yeah.
if the
It's
Mike
anything
Tyson,
like Tyson. Yeah.
the Tyson fight taught us anything, you're going to have some buffering issues. So, but just like, come on, like,
Yeah.
stay in your lane.
That might have been our first retroactive in an episode of all time.
I'm sorry. I'm worked up about that one because like that one to me is like NBA is synonymous with Christmas. They've been doing this for years and years and years. And then the NFL is like, oh, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to walk in on Christmas Day. It's going to be for us. Yeah, shut the fuck up, NFL.
It sounded like Millmore.
Do you
from The
not have
Simpsons.
Netflix?
I do.
Oh.
It's more of like the fact that like, why do they need to go and infringe on what the NBA does? Like that to me is like the exact thing about what we were talking about where pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. This is a thing where in order to do this, I'm going to rewind here a little bit. In order to have the game on Christmas Day, which is on Wednesday, they have to have the 4 teams that are playing on Christmas Day play on Saturday this upcoming week, just so they can have a minimum of 4 days rest before they go into the next game. So they have to not only screw up next week's schedule, but they have to screw up this week's schedule as well.
It's
so
horrible
again,
for the players.
it's
complete
awful for the
bullshit.
players.
Well,
Yeah.
Roger Goodell, throw him in the penalty box because he's.
I feel like we're just like heating up here, like we're ready to go, and it's
Oh
like
my
I'm
God.
like I'm like
I
here
get
we
worked
go.
up.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well,
He's gonna explode.
tune into the games. We're gonna have a lot to come back to. We're as we mentioned at the top of the episode, we're taking next week off, a little holiday break for the bros.
Well deserved, boys.
Yeah, getting
Oh,
to
yeah.
get
What a
to
run.
enjoy some downtime, but it's been a hell of a 20 episodes here so far. We'll record right before New Year's, and actually we'll release an episode right on New Year's. So that'll be out for folks in 2 weeks, and a great year ahead. It's been an
We
awesome
may have some
time.
resolutions.
Yeah, resolutions. Mike Cadlick will be joining us to talk the end of the Patriots season. We'll have 2 games to recap. That'll be a lengthier episode, as we'll have a lot to sink our teeth into with Mike. But looking forward to that. Hope you guys enjoy the holidays. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you guys with some time off from the real jobs. And the boys will be back soon enough after after the holiday break, 2 weeks from now. So any parting thoughts, words of wisdom?
I don't know if you guys mentioned the 20th episode. I'm sure you did in the beginning of the episode. But I just want to say it has been a pleasure, doing this with you guys. We're busy people, so we don't get to see each other all the time on the weekends, and it's really a nice outlet to just talk with you guys and let it out there sports wise, and we're always laughing and having a good time, and that's really what it's all about. So I hope the next 20 episodes are just as fun with you guys, and to much success for us boys.
Been an absolute pleasure, like you said, and thanks to the listeners, all you people that are investing in us and taking your time to
Absolutely.
to hear our takes and whatnot. So Gabe, I couldn't have echoed what you said better. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've all grown closer through this. We talk literally every week. We text every day.
Let's talk it out.
So yeah, love you guys, and thanks to all the listeners out there. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Seriously.
Agreed.
Great people out there listening. Can't have a podcast without the listeners. So much appreciated. And completely agree with the sentiments of everybody. So that's gonna do it. Episode 20 in the books. Hope everybody has a lovely holiday break. We'll be back next time. We'll see you then.
Adios, amigos.
Bye, Beto.
Later, everyone.
Peace.